Well, we are so excited about your album, About a Woman, obviously. One thing that I wanted to touch on, I love the single Beautiful as You, but I saw you do an acoustic version on your Instagram of After All the Bars Closed, which I loved. It was so
Thank you.
cool to see it just like cut down and super raw.
Thank you.
I wanted to know how you kind of, if you ever feel either like a bit of regret or doubt when you're releasing a song and you're like, oh, do I tone it down? Do I pump it up? Like, what is the kind of thought process behind that?
Man, I think when I figure that out, I'll let you know. I don't know any artist that don't second guess their work to some extent. You know what I'm saying? But I think that's where like a good team comes into play.
Hmm.
I think if it was all left up to my gut, I'm not sure that I'd be sitting here talking to you right now. But yeah, I'm one of those people like I love playing acoustic. Like it's how I started, like in high school, learning how to play the guitar at bonfires or parties. Like I just love playing acoustic guitar. And at some point in my career, like I would love to make strictly just an acoustic record that I record by myself, like right here in the studio. But I
I
also,
love that.
but I also equally love to freaking rock. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
Like when I walk out on stage, like I love like my phone, like when I listen to music, always says your audio has been too loud this week. Like I listen to music really loud. And so
Yeah.
it's kind of that fine line of like, do you make a whole record that way? Or do you make a record and then put out alternate versions of the songs? Like I love personally hearing alternate versions of songs. Like when I hear something that's like very production heavy and then I hear it really stripped, I'm like, wow, like now I can experience both worlds of that.
Yeah.
Um, and so like I've been kind of in my studio this last week, like taking all the songs off this record and like literally just recording them by myself with me and a guitar. And it's been really fun. And I hope that a lot of those get to come out, at some point in the near future. So
I hope so too. And that
yeah,
actually must be because you love hearing alternative versions to songs. That must be so unique to you because you write so many songs, like Lee
sure.
Bryce Parking Lot Party.
Yeah.
She had me at Heads Carolina. So it must be really cool when you write those songs with, I imagine the intent for you to record it and
Yeah.
then you kind of give it to someone else.
Yeah.
What was your favorite rendition of a song that you wrote that someone else recorded?
Gosh. Probably the very first hit that I ever had was actually not my own. It was for a band called Florida Georgia Line. And
Oh, round here?
yeah, and we wrote that like the demo of that song was so rough and raw and like it was just acoustic guitar and an out of tune piano and three dudes singing in a room. Um, but I think sometimes that's how you know when you have something special. Like even when the OG quality is not great, but you somehow kind of go, dang, this song is kind of fire. Um,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I,
And
I would
it
love
is. It is
I,
fire.
I would love for the
Yeah.
world to be able to hear the demo of that song because it was actually really special. So
Can you please release that? We need to
yeah.
see what that is, especially maybe like I imagine you were very young at that point. That might have been around like your first record and you kind of had
Yeah.
the Justin Bieber hair.
Oh
So if
yeah,
you could put that
100%.
video out somewhere into the universe, we'd love to
We
see it.
could. Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna start bringing back the
Recreate
swoop.
it.
You know what I'm saying? So,
Uncanny resemblance. Is there any Canadian artists that you're really excited to kind of collaborate with or to see or perform?
I feel like I've gotten to know Tennille Towns pretty well.
Oh,
And
yeah,
I've got and I feel like Gord Bamford is sort of like the George Strait of like just Canadian
totally.
country music. And I
Yeah.
and I've gotten to meet him once, and I think that was back in 2017. And I've always been a huge fan of his. But yeah, and also getting to know Mackenzie Porter. I've always been a fan of her, acting career, and now obviously a huge fan of her musical career.
And I'd be remiss not to mention your family because, I mean, you guys are such a great family unit, and you can tell you have so much love from like the fans of not just you, but your
For
whole
sure.
family, which is really, really cool. And I wanted to ask this one question because back in the day, they had like, maybe they still do. Trashy magazines kind of had these sections where it was like, celebrities, they're just like us. And then they'd
Oh,
show them like riding a scooter or something. And
right.
I mean, as a mere peasant, I love seeing like celebrities kind of like reflect us. And I'd want to know what yours and Lauren's last kind of just petty fight was. What
Yeah.
was your last argument where you're like, this was ridiculous?
It was actually this morning. I, I like when I get into like hobbies of any kind, I just go all the way in. And
Yeah.
lately for some reason, I have found being a barista has been very exciting for me.
Nice.
And so like I bought the Chemex and I bought the bean grinder and I bought all this like really fancy coffee from like all over the world and it's all sitting on the counter, where I think is a great place for it to be because I go in the kitchen every morning and I make coffee. And Lauren was like, "Do you ever feel like you should find a place for these things?" And I'm like, "The place for it is right there on the counter." And she's like, "No, we find cabinet space and we make places for and all of a sudden with 30 minutes in, we're like voices are getting elevated and I'm like, I feel like I'm being parented right now, you know? And then all of a sudden we were just like, can we just like hug and pretend that that never happened? And then I found a place for the coffee stuff. So
You always, yeah.
it usually ends in me doing exactly what she says to do. So
That's usually the husband usually just has to kind of like, okay, whatever you
yeah,
say, we'll rewind
for
it.
sure.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time today. We're
Yeah.
so excited about your album About a Woman,
Yeah.
and hopefully see you in town soon for a performance.
Heck yeah. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.